Hi, good morning. This is Tina with Crossrock Mortgage. Thank you so much. This is Janet Trott, and she's with Fidelity National Title, and she came today to answer some questions on title insurance and hopefully help us to learn and understand it.
Well, my name is Janet Trott, and I'm with Fidelity National Title, and I've been in the industry since the late 70s, and I've been with Fidelity for over 10 years now. I am a field representative, a title insurance representative, and I call on the North Orange County area, real estate offices, lenders, commercial, you name it.
Well, the first thing I wanted to look into is basically, hopefully educating people on what title insurance is.
Title insurance is a title policy that insures the past of the real property and the owners. And it's a one-time premium at the close of escrow.
So you only pay it one time, and that one-time premium, it lasts
As long as you have that policy and you haven't refinanced or got a new policy, that policy remains until you move on or do whatever. So anything that occurs from the time you own it to the time you sell it.
When is this policy needed, and who needs title insurance?
Well, when you're involved in a sale transaction, the seller usually gets it to prove to the buyer and the lender that they have clear title. The lender is concerned with their position of their loan. So if it's a first money, they want to be in first position so there's no other liens and encumbrances. And then the buyer wants to make sure that they're not incurring anything left over from the seller.
How do you initially get that information to the buyer, seller, agents, etc.?
So once a transaction goes through, it goes through escrow, and they open what they call a preliminary title report. And what a preliminary title report is, it's a statement of terms and conditions that for the offerance of the policy. So these are all the things listed that we have to go through and make sure that we clear up before we record. Want to ensure that the people that are selling it to you are in fact able to sell the property, the legal description, any liens and encumbrances, taxes, anything that could have affected. CC&Rs, like let's say I wanted to build a pool and there was this pipe running down the middle of that property.
So there might be an easement down the middle of the
and
property.
And they couldn't do it, and the whole purpose they bought that property was for that. So you'd have to look at the CC&Rs and the easements and whatnot. So as a buyer's agent, you want to look at that stuff. What is the purpose for this property? And all that's going to be on the prelim.
And the buyer has the opportunity to look at all of that.
The buyer has to sign off on it, usually during escrow. Let's say if there was a bankruptcy, even if it was the seller, and none of those liens were released, they would still be on the property. So, and then let's say one of the parties has passed and they didn't have a trust, so then there's a probate. That'd be important to your buyer because there's a process. So let's say they wanted to close in 30 days and you can't because you have to go to court. So foreclosures, trust, all sorts of things. Those are all the things that we require to look at in order to clear the title to pass it on.
A lot of times in our industry, we hear the term cloud on title. Is that what you're referring to?
Those are the clouds, yes. So in order to, there's always a process to fix them. A bankruptcy court, probate court, foreclosure, there's processes. So maybe your terms of your contract is only 45 days and you don't have a court date for 60. That's going to present a problem. So I would recommend you get those things cleared up prior to going into escrow.
And those are all things that our title company will review to make sure that it's all taken care of.
The title company is the last person to see all the documents. We review them before we record, and then we receive the money. So we're kind of the ones that say, yes, we're ready to record. I mean, escrow tells us they're ready to record, and then we review everything and verify that. And if everything is in sync, then we record.
And you have all the funds in. So,
yeah, we
yeah.
have to receive the funds before we could record.
Awesome. So what exactly does the title company do? How do they get all this information that's on that preliminary title report?
We have systems that we get our information from the county, that we do a history of the property.
So you do an actual search of the property?
We do. They're called title plants, and everything's mostly automated now, but we do the whole history of the property. So it doesn't matter if it happened 100 years ago and it still shows up, it's going to affect the property.
You have a very important job then to make sure that all of this information is on there, and then providing all of that information.
It's important to be accurate.
Yeah.
Yes, correct, because you don't want to pass something on
So
to
having
somebody
a
else.
good, effective title company makes all the difference in the world then.
It really does. I mean, even if they're telling you things you don't want to hear because you want to move on with your transaction, they're telling you because it's keeping everybody out of court.
Right. So, yeah. So it makes a difference.
It does.
It makes a difference.
We want to take the concerns away from you. That's our job. So we want to make it easy as possible. We work closely with the escrow, the agents, even the lenders, everybody that is involved in the transaction. We want to alleviate the stress for you and everybody concerned. And we're one of the nation's leading title companies.
Well, I can speak from my own personal experience with Fidelity National Title. I have had nothing but great experiences with them, and when I have had an issue or a problem or concern with a property, they have truly gone the extra mile to help me get it cleared up and closed in an efficient time frame. So I truly appreciate the company and the job that you guys do. Another thing that comes up all the time and that we hear and that affects both the buyer and the seller is vesting. What is vesting and why is it important?
The vesting is how you choose to hold title. In other words, so I buy a property and I'm married, so I want to do husband and wife as joint tenants. So the joint tenants is my vesting. We have to have 100% ownership in order to pass the property on to somebody else. So the vesting is very important. If we're missing 1%, we have to figure it out. If a person passes, if they're joint tenants, it automatically goes to the surviving spouse. But if it's tenants in common, not necessarily. So then it could create a probate situation.
Or what happens if somebody gets a divorce?
Same thing. We'd have to, if they're awarded the property in court, then we need all the court documents. So again, there's a whole process. And like you said, typically my agents will reach out to me and say, what do we need to do? And then we just go through the process of just, anything can be fixed with a little bit of hard work. I would recommend getting a trust. Trust really helps. But again, if your property's held in trust, then we have to look at the trust and make sure that if it's a successor trustee, that they have the ability to sell the property. So again, we're just trying to protect everybody involved.
What happens when a deed is recorded and it changes vesting, but there's not been title insurance included when they record that deed?
Well, when they do that, it has an opportunity for anything to attach to the property with that new person's name. So let's say they were married,
that makes sense. Yeah.
And went through a divorce or had judgments for whatever reasons. That will attach. The minute you put them on title, that will attach to the property.
Wow. So and it also does it, if you don't have title insurance, then you might have to have the deed re-signed, or is there opportunities?
Well, it's not that easy. Once something attaches, you're going to have to deal with whatever that was. So chances are you're going to have to pay that or do whatever for
do
that.
Do something to get it released.
Correct.
Got it.
When people go through bankruptcy, there's like several ways they file a bankruptcy, and sometimes the attorneys will not release the liens. They'll go in, they'll name all these judgment things that they want paid off, and the court will say, okay, I'm paying this, this, and this. But they don't get a release of obligation or a release of lien. That's still going to show on the property. So you have to make sure all those things are released, because
Wow.
oftentimes I hear, oh, I paid that. Okay, where's your proof? So once it's on there, we can't ignore it.
What are fees that title company charges for this service?
Well, we charge a fee based on the liability amount, and that's what we call the settlement fee. There's endorsement fees if apply, transfer tax, closing protection, messenger, overnight mail, and then there's a government fee, as you know, that passed a couple years ago,
Right.
an electronic doc fee. So anything incurred in the transaction, we only charge whatever it incurred. My website is fidelityOC.com, and I have a lot of flyers on the things we spoke about today if you're interested, or you can reach out to me at 714-609-8017.
You have been a
Tina.
pleasure. No, thank you. I so appreciate all the information, your willingness to sit down with us and share it. You're amazing. Thank you so much.